Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, September 22nd, 2018, and today we're going to be doing a 2020 election prediction between the Democratic nominee for the Texas Senate race in 2018, Beto O'Rourke, versus Donald Trump in the year 2020, of course going for re-election. So we are currently 773 days away from the 2020 presidential election, so there's a long time away. So this election prediction obviously will change over time, and if Beto O'Rourke doesn't end up being a candidate, which he probably won't be, this map probably won't be accurate at all. But first of all, we're going to be looking at this map, and also I've seen a lot of arguments saying, how could Donald Trump lose to someone I've never heard of? Not me personally, but someone they personally haven't heard of. So Beto O'Rourke is a candidate most people have heard of. I believe the argument saying that he really isn't known can't really be told to people that currently keep up with the mainstream or just regular media. But overall, the average American, I wouldn't say would know Beto O'Rourke, but he's definitely getting his name out there in many ways. Many Americans do know who he is, but also that argument really isn't valid. When it comes down to it, maybe it matters in the primary season, but if someone already wins the Democratic nomination, you know their name is already known nationwide. Bernie Sanders wasn't known, just like Beto O'Rourke isn't now, and then went into the 2016 primaries, laughed at, and then almost won. So a lot can happen. Bernie Sanders is definitely known nationwide by almost every American. Likely, same thing would happen for any Democratic nominee because you don't really win a nomination for a major political party that controls half the country and really aren't known nationwide. So that argument really doesn't stand at this point. I'm going to be doing this video based off a shaded region. If you don't know what that means, I'm going to be using safe, likely, leaning, and toss-ups. So I'm going to show you exactly what that means. For safe, it's going to start off with solid red or solid blue. Then for likely, it'll go into leaning. A lighter shade, but pretty dark for blue or red, and then lighter. The lightest, I guess, is in terms of leaning for which means 1 to 5%. So essentially, leaning is 1 to 5%. Likely is 6 to maybe 6 to 10%, I guess, for the sake of this prediction. And then it's going to be 11% plus for the safe column, and then the pure toss-up column will be the ones characterized by the yellow symbol. So overall, this map is going to be very interesting, to say the least. We're going to see a lot of things change on this map compared to where they were in 2016, and we're going to start off with the safe states. So we're going to go back to the safe and toss-up column. We're going to characterize all the safe states for Beto O'Rourke, pretty much those key Democratic states. I would say that New Mexico would become a safe state in this scenario, only because Hillary Clinton did win it by 9% back in 2016. I definitely think O'Rourke could expand on Sunbelt voters in a couple of key areas. For the safe Republican states, we're going to fill those in now. Pretty much those Republican states that were Republican states back in 2016. Some of these races probably could get a little bit closer, but probably not enough to move it from the safe column, which means higher than, I guess, 10%. So Alaska, and that pretty much finishes off the map in terms of safe states, quote-unquote safe states for Beto O'Rourke versus Donald Trump. So now we're going to go ahead and move into the likely states for either candidate, and that actually puts Maine's 2nd District. Actually, we'll come back to Maine 2nd District because I really want to talk about that one. Virginia, probably a likely state for someone like Beto O'Rourke. I definitely see Obama-type qualities in him, especially in terms of endorsements. He gets endorsements like Cory Booker, just, those top senators, those top Democrats that are pretty known nationwide or just known in their own states but are known as the establishment Democrats. I definitely see an Obama-type candidate in him. He's not a minority. I believe he did try to join the Congressional Hispanic Caucus but was denied because he wasn't a Hispanic, which was expected, but overall, Beto O'Rourke coming from Texas, he is making the Texas race a little bit closer in terms of the Senate race, actually a lot closer than it probably would have been with any other Democrat, and that's saying a lot. This candidate actually is behind Ted Cruz by 3 to 4%, but there was a poll that showed him leading by 2%, which was very interesting to me, to be completely honest. I would never really expect someone like Beto O'Rourke or any Democrat in Texas to be even leading at a singular poll. And a 2% lead isn't the best thing. Ted Cruz has consistently led in every other poll, so I'm not valuing that one over the other ones. It's just very interesting to see those type of results, especially from a state like Texas. Colorado, I think, could move into the likely column for the Democrats. I believe it was likely back in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Hillary Clinton won it maybe by 6%, but overall, this one goes in the likely column for the Democratic Party. Arizona and Nevada we'll come back to. Minnesota, that one I'm going to move into the leaning column. I'm probably going to put that one in the likely column. I do see Beto O'Rourke expanding on the Rust Belt voters, especially appealing to the white working class. I get it. He's from Texas, but he definitely appeals with voters, and he speaks to voters on a type of level that we haven't really seen by someone except for like Obama or possibly Bernie Sanders. He's not a progressive, but the Rust Belt isn't a progressive area. Typically, they just didn't like Hillary Clinton. And overall, these four states actually, definitely are going to change the tides a little bit in terms of the 2020 presidential election. Not just Beto O'Rourke being a good candidate, also Donald Trump's failure to gain voters here, and the fact that he has lost a number of voters in terms of his approval rating. He has lost many voters if you look at his disapproval ratings in all three of these states, not really counting Minnesota in terms of approval rating because he didn't win it in 2016, but it was still a close race. Minnesota moves in the likely column. Also, Michigan, I'm going to put into the leaning Democratic column along with Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. So the reason why these states are in the leaning column and not the likely or even safe column is mainly because these states were close in 2016 and did go for the GOP nominee. And even though they could go nearing 5%, I don't see a huge blowout. Yes, it's 2020, but voters always come back in terms of approval polls. But Donald Trump has come to a point where he's literally losing so many voters in a number of these states that he's gaining them in Florida. I mean, I'm going to give him that. He does gain them in Florida. He gains them in a couple of other states. But when it comes down to these Rust Belt states, it's very important to look at the close details. Yeah, he could be bringing back jobs to a certain state and a certain city, but it doesn't necessarily positively reflect on him. Yeah, again, he promised jobs. He brought them to a singular area. It isn't affecting the state economy a lot in terms of his trade relations and overall promises. He has fulfilled many of them, but the ones that are consistently impacting Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, they're not necessarily going through 100% the way he would want them to. And he isn't also being approved of because of the things that he does. It's not just the economy. There's a number of other issues that the Rust Belt worries about, and also the president's etiquette nationwide isn't necessarily showing the best thing in terms of approval ratings for him. And that's just a general thing. I mean, it happened under Obama. Yes, he was at a point where he was at Trump's approval rating right now, so I'm not going to say that Trump can't win this election in the future, but as it stands today, these three Rust Belt states likely are going to go to Beto O'Rourke, and if those go, other states like Maine are probably going to go into the Democratic column. New Hampshire probably going to go in the leaning Democratic column, which effectively makes Beto O'Rourke the next president of the United States at 272 electoral votes. And we can go over to a couple of other states. Georgia and Arizona, I do expect to narrowly go to Donald Trump, along with North Carolina, Ohio, and Iowa. The second district from the state of Nebraska, I actually see it narrowly going to Beto O'Rourke. I think that he could possibly turn over some of those whiter voters and bring them into his column. In the second district up in Maine, I do expect that one to narrowly, very narrowly, go to the president, with giving him 192 electoral votes. So when it comes down to it, a couple of these states are definitely going to be pretty close. But Texas, for right now, I'm going to put in the Trump column very narrowly. I understand this race is closer in 2018 in the Senate election, and Ted Cruz does around the same approval rating as the president. But in 2016, Texas did get a lot closer than it was in 2012 and 2008. And that was because of Donald Trump and also changing demographics. 2020 will be one of those years where the Democrats think they can target the state of Texas, but it may not be the time. And Texas, even with someone like Beto O'Rourke, I definitely think could get a lot closer than before, possibly between 1 to 2% margin for Donald Trump, but I do expect him to win it at the end of the day. Nevada, I expect to go to Beto O'Rourke by a narrow margin, just pretty much how I expected to go in like it did in 2016. And Florida, this is what I say that I'm going to be very contested about, but I'm going to end up putting it in the O'Rourke column. And the main reasoning behind it is this is a state that pretty much goes well with Hispanic-type candidates. Now, when I say that, I really expect Hispanics to come out and vote, or Latino voters to come out and vote pretty heavily for Beto O'Rourke, although he is not necessarily, quote-unquote, as the news media would say, one of them. He definitely does resonate with them very well. I mean, he wouldn't be doing this good in Texas if he wasn't, because many Texan voters are minorities. Yes, it is a Republican state, but typically those minorities don't vote, and the fact that he's getting them out to vote in primaries and then possibly in the general election, we're going to see the true effect of his campaigning skills. And then visiting every single Texas county definitely aids to his argument that he can resonate with voters very well. And he's also one of those candidates that may be an establishment type Democrat, but he's not too much in the establishment. I mean, he was a congressional representative from a Texas district, but that doesn't mean he's a part of the establishment. Having the backing of the establishment is different than being a part of the establishment. Now, looking at a number of these leaning Republican states, it looks a little weird seeing no likely Republican states, but to be completely honest with you, we're probably not going to see Ohio go back into that 9% margin, or Iowa. Georgia's probably not going to go even more for the president. North Carolina, probably not in terms of the approval rating of the president and just the candidates themselves. Texas, probably not, especially with someone coming from Texas on the Democratic side. And Arizona, again, not so much in terms of approval ratings and also being able to resonate with a number of Sunbelt voters. So overall, this finishes off our electoral map with Beto O'Rourke at 308 electoral votes, Donald Trump at 230, Beto O'Rourke flipping back Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and then the 2nd district from the state of Nebraska, and then Donald Trump held on to Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, and Arizona. So overall, thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.